This is Design Build Risk Management, Lesson 8, Owner's Implied Warranty of the Owner-Provided Bridging Specifications. The first case is one involving M.A. Mortensen, a Board of Contract Appeals decision, in which the contractor was found to be entitled to rely on the bridging specifications that were provided by the project owner, the government. The RFP in this case was for a medical clinic, and it stated that the government's preliminary design could be used in preparing proposals. But it stated that the successful bidder must verify the design details during the design phase. Well, it turned out that the initial design for the steel was not adequate, and that the design builder had to increase the amount of structural steel as well as the rebar in the concrete. The court declined to enforce a contract clause that stated that the design builder was to, quote, verify and validate the accuracy of the preliminary design information, close quote. The court found that the design builder's duty to verify the design was only after the award and not during the bidding. The court said that the contract documents didn't say, quote, the information was to be used at the proposer's risk, close quote. That's an important decision because you're going to see in other cases, including more recent cases that are currently on appeal to the Federal Circuit, that the government is continuing to try to take a position that it can disclaim reliance on information provided with the request for proposals, such as site data. So this is a good case to argue, but keep an eye on more recent litigation that will be decided within the next year. The next case is Bethlehem Steel Corporation, another Board of Contract Appeals decision. In this case, the board found that the contractor can rely on the bridging specification design details to complete its final design to meet performance specs. The RFP in this case was for the design build of a ship for the Navy, and it included preliminary structural design details concerning the steel, language requiring the design builder to do its own calculations and prepare final designs to meet the performance requirements of the ship, including certain vibration limits. And the design builder determined in this case that it was necessary to substantially alter the amount and size of the steel in order to avoid excessive vibration. So the steel that it would have to use was different from what was specified, but in order to meet the specified vibration requirements, it couldn't use that steel, it had to use something different. And the government denied a change order, the REA request, to pay the design builder additional costs. The board held the following, quote, where performance specifications are accompanied by detailed drawings, absent effective disclaimers, the contractor has the right to rely on the drawings for adequate detail to meet the performance requirements without substantial change or redesign, period, close quote. The next case is Donahue Electric, another Board of Contract Appeals decision. And this shows the implied warranty of the bridging specifications. The RFP was for a VA project, and it required the design builder to install government-furnished equipment, a sterilizer, that would interface with a new boiler that the design builder was to install. Preliminary drawings in the bridging specs stated that they were for information only, but bidders were nevertheless required to use them for bidding purposes and to finalize the design after being awarded the contract. After award, the design builder found that the sterilizer wouldn't work unless it upgraded the specified boiler. The government contracting officer denied a change order, an REA, for the upgrade cost. It went before the board, and the board held that the government assumed the design risk and warranted the accuracy of the bidding specifications. The board rejected the government's argument that because it was a design build contract, the contractor was responsible for any design problem. You can't expect the bidder to complete the design and discover the problem prior to bid, said the board. The next case is Fire Security Systems, another Board of Contract Appeals decision. In this case, where the government contract drawings of existing building conditions were inaccurate, the design builder was required to verify the actual conditions. The RFP was for design build of a sprinkler system, and the contract included, quote, background, close quote, drawings of existing conditions of a VA hospital. The RFP required the design builder to verify all information provided by the government. After award, the design builder learned that certain drawings were inaccurate, and it had to perform a complete field survey of the hospital in order to determine what was accurate. The design builder said that it had only intended to spot check the drawings against conditions. The government denied the change order, the REA, for the extra cost of doing the field survey. And the board held that the design builder was not entitled to recover, since the work was not extra but was already included in the contract. The contract required the contractor to verify and not merely spot check the conditions. So the court found as follows, quote, as a design build contractor, the contractor assumed a far greater responsibility for preparation of drawings than would a contractor that was constructing entirely with the use of prescriptive drawings and specifications. The government furnished drawings were not intended to supersede the design build contractor's independent obligation to verify the accuracy of each room's dimensions, close quote. You can see from this decision why the government sometimes feels somewhat confident in making the argument that because it is a design build contract, the contractor does not get all the normal benefits of a contractor under a design bid build project, and that the design builder is expected to do more when it comes to verifying conditions and do more when it comes to its site investigation prior to bidding the project. Nevertheless, I continue to look at cases like this one, which by the way is a 1999 decision, and hope that more recent case law will be used to temper the interpretation and application of this case and others like it. The next case is Armour & Company versus Scott. It's a Pennsylvania United States District Court decision. And in this case, the owner was found liable to the design builder. The owner's liability is limited because generally the owner is not coordinating work of or resolving disputes between the designer and the contractor. But if the owner becomes involved in everyday decisions or acts in a supervisory role, its liability to the design builder may be comparable to its liability to a contractor in the traditional contract setting. Where the owner became involved in the design process by increasing the size of the facility and modifying mechanical and electrical systems, the court in the Armour case found that the owner was in a de facto partnership with the design builder and found interferences by the owner to be actual breach of contract. Next, we'll go to Lesson 9. The bidder must seek clarification of ambiguities in contract documents and specifications. First case here is United XL Corporation, Board of Contract Appeals decision out of 2003. The design builder must ask questions about obvious conflicts in the specifications. In this case, the RFP contained conflicting requirements regarding use of aluminum or steel for ventilation registers, grills, and diffusers. The government required more expensive materials than the design builder said that it intended to use. And the government denied a change order, REA, that requested increased cost. The government asserted that even if the specification could be read to allow either or both materials, the discrepancy was obvious. It was patent. And because the design builder failed to inquire about what material was required, it couldn't take advantage of the discrepancy to use the less expensive material. The board held that the rule pertaining to patent conflict applies to design build projects just the same as it would to any other type of a project. And the court said the following, quote, "The case law indicates that a design build contract shifts risk to a contractor that a final design will be more costly than the bid price to build, and that the traditional rules of fixed price contract interpretation still obtain." Close quote. The next case is MCSD Construction, Board of Contract Appeals decision. No REA was due for a contractor where the roofing spec was either patently ambiguous or latently ambiguous. Here, the specifications for the roof repair called for lightweight concrete, but in other sections it called for asphaltic concrete. The contractor bid its proposal seeking to use the less expensive material, and the contract was awarded to the contractor, but then the government rejected the use of the less expensive material. The government essentially said, in order to be responsive, you actually agreed to use these materials. The board held that the ambiguity in the spec was apparent, and that if it was deemed patent, the contractor had a duty to inquire, and it failed to do so. But the court said, even if it wasn't patent, if it was instead deemed latent and not discovered until after the contract was awarded, the contractor would have to prove how it priced its bid with the less expensive material. And in this case, the contractor failed to demonstrate how it priced its bid, and therefore it lost its appeal. Let's go now to Lesson 10. By accepting design changes proposed by the design builder, the government does not accept ownership of the revised spec or assume the risk of failure. The first case here is Stewart and Stevenson Services Board of Contract Appeals decision, held that acceptance by the government owner of design builder's proposal with detailed plans does not shift the risk to the government of problems with those detailed plans. The RFP in this case called for generators to be installed on trailers. The design builder submitted a proposal, and after the award, it made significant changes to its approved technical proposal, which were approved by the government at that time. The design builder argued that the contract placed the risk of all design change on the government, since the government adopted the design builder's technical proposal and incorporated it into the contract. The board held that where the design builder's technical proposal is incorporated into a contract, the proposal does not become a government spec for which the government assumes risk of design change. Next lesson is 11. Indemnification and defense obligations can be costly.